I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network, and this is a breaking news alert. The acting archivist, Debra Wall, from the National Archives, sent a letter to Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, who chairs the Committee on Oversight and Reform for the United States House of Representatives. And in this letter to Congresswoman Maloney, the archivist explains that there are still definitely records out there that Donald Trump and the White House has not turned over to the archives. And what is specifically referenced here, in addition to documents that may be missing, they specifically address in this letter, the archivist does, electronic communications that were sent via personal servers and through outside email accounts other than official White House email accounts. And one of the examples that the archivist gives is Peter Navarro was using private email accounts. Peter Navarro, a former top Trump aide in the White House who was leading the COVID response, and I guess you can say by leading, meaning leading the destructive policy that harmed us all and spreading conspiracy and disinformation. But for example, Peter Navarro was using an outside email server and account through a Proton email account, and the Department of Justice filed a civil lawsuit in an action that's called replevin. Replevin is return of property, where they sued Peter Navarro, and Peter Navarro essentially is not even raising any defense other than he wants to be granted immunity, which of course the Department of Justice is not going to give him. And the Department of Justice there just filed a motion for summary judgment to get those records back. But it's not just Peter Navarro. There's a number of other White House officials who use private servers and private email accounts to try to hide what they were sending off of the White House email account and White House email servers, which they weren't allowed to do. And this is something, of course, that they tried to criticize, they did criticize and condemn Hillary Clinton for. And while it turned out that with respect to Hillary Clinton, ultimately through that investigation where Hillary Clinton, unlike these MAGA Republican White House people, she cooperated at all times, answered all questions, never pled the fifth, never hid her conduct at all, was always as transparent as she can be. In fact, it was determined that Comey actually made a mistake with respect to her. There was actually no classified records, although he tried to claim there was initially, simply because of her position as a Secretary of State. But I digress, and I can go into a whole rant on how the Hillary Clinton email situation was literally a whole lot to do with absolutely nothing. But she was transparent in the whole process, and she spoke and didn't plead the fifth and whatever. I'll save that for another day. But here you have Trump White House officials intentionally using private servers, refusing to turn over those records, and engaging in a widespread conspiracy not to turn over presidential records. And that is outlined in this letter to Carolyn Maloney. Regarding all of the other documents, their possession, whether or not Trump transferred classified records to third parties, the National Archives tells Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, with respect to that issue concerning whether Trump has surrendered all presidential records, we respectfully refer you to the Department of Justice in light of this ongoing investigation, in light of its ongoing investigation, essentially telling Congresswoman Maloney, look, this is a criminal matter now, and so this is with the Department of Justice, and they are the ones investigating it. And here, the letter from the archivist says, look, I share your interest in ensuring that the archives has in its custody all of the records that should have been transferred to us under the Presidential Records Act at the end of the Trump administration. We explain how important that is, and that they're aware again of these outstanding documents and these emails and private servers that were used, and they're out there trying to track that down. And they say, for example, NARA has been able to obtain such records from a number of officials. We will continue to pursue the return of similar types of presidential records from officials. As appropriate, NARA would consult with the Department of Justice on whether to initiate actions for the recovery of records unlawfully removed. And then they give the example of the Peter Navarro case, who unlawfully removed those records. And we'll see ultimately if the civil case against Navarro turns into a criminal case. And that's why Navarro's asking for immunity, because he fears that there's going to be a criminal case. Of course, Navarro also is set to go to trial in mid to late November for contempt of Congress for not responding to the January 6th committee's subpoena. So I think a very important letter by the National Archives. I mean, in terms of adding to the body of knowledge that we know, unfortunately, we knew that Trump had stolen these classified records. We knew that Trump and his White House officials and people like Kushner and Navarro and others were using private email accounts and private servers and trying to use encrypted messaging services to avoid accountability. They were doing that intentionally and in violation of the appropriate lawful protocols. But to see it in this letter shows also that the NARA is not done, National Archives. The Department of Justice is looking into it, and they're letting Carolyn Maloney, Congresswoman, who heads the Oversight and Reform Committee in the House of Representatives, know that. So for now, this has been Marcellus from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button now. We're on our way to 1 million subs, thanks to your support. We appreciate it. And if you want to support independent media like this, here's what you need to do right now. Go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. There are different membership tiers there. You could join one of those membership tiers that has exclusive benefits, but most importantly, you could help grow this independent media channel wherever you live in the world. It would be so helpful because we don't have any outside investors at all. We rely on to fund our research and to fund a lot of the work that we do. We're just powered by democracy. We fund it ourselves, and we're powered by you. So we appreciate everything that you can do there. I'm Ben Marcellus from the MeidasTouch Network. Until next time.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.